can all get reminiscing where the sun and moon call home. Sun and moon call home. Where the sun and moon call home. I was on my sun, caught in your rays, almost done finding your place. Summer sun, caught in your rays, take me to your hideaway. Your hideaway. Your hideaway. Your hideaway. Take me to your hideaway. Do you even notice me?
Good evening, everyone. I think let's wait for 5 minutes and let's everyone join. Good evening, good morning, everyone. Where are you joining from? It would be great if you can put it in the chat. Where are you joining from? And how are you feeling? Green for great, yellow for okay. And if your day has been going bad, you can put red. Oh, great. Bangalore, Mumbai. I think Mumbai is going through heat wave and Bangalore is experiencing a really cold weather. And we have people from Egypt. That's great. So, oh, hi Amrita. Let's give 2 more minutes and we'll get started. So first of all, thank you so much for taking the time and joining the session. It's great to see that everyone is, from design and tech, right? We are just waiting for what is Metaverse and Web3. We've been hearing all this jargons thrown around, and I think there's so much content going around. It's just mind-boggling. Like, believe me, like I have dipped little bit into it, and I can tell you, like from a regular person's point of view, it's a lot to take in. But it's all very interesting the way we are going ahead, right? So I think, Sushri, we are good to go. Should we start off? So let's get in, right? Web3 and Metaverse. So before we jump into this whole presentation, the whole talk, right? Let's just go around the history of web, right? So what you see here is being the evolution of web. Like we started in 1989 as the first 1989 the web started, and 1990 officially like took off. And as we went in, the first web was more of a reading, right? People who had access to like web creation stuff, they used to create, and most of the audience would read it. Web 2 was more of social collaboration. Everyone could get on board. There was cloud computing, Facebook. I think, how many of you remember Orkut? Way before Facebook, right? I think Orkut was, I started social media from Orkut, and that was one of the platform that was very interesting, and it's good. Like I see now, like a lot of its concept has translated to other platforms like the wall scraps, and it was interesting to see that phase. Now we have Facebook, Airbnb, and in the last 3 years, I think a lot of people have like been exposed to cryptocurrencies, right? That's the first tech from Web3 that is being exposed to public openly. And it started popularizing, I think, in 2019, but crypto was, I think it started somewhere around 2012, because I remember when, first Bitcoin came in, it was very cheap and people were just like, oh, why to invest in that? But now we know, like if only we would have invested instead of dollar in Bitcoin, we would be millionaires right now. But keeping that aside, so this has been the evolution of web, right? Let's see. Web 1 established e-commerce, it established payment platforms, right? And we had web portals coming in, we had licensed softwares came in, and then there was like hardwares which were only and only applicable to certain kind of softwares that use that. Now when web 2 came in, we had online gaming that became popular, we had referral, subscription, app store, all these contents like SaaS platform became popular. And it was a collaborative space. It enabled anyone and everyone to come on board and be a creator, right? Now web 3 is next evolution of web 2, right? Like right now we creating stuff. Now one of the main challenges with web 2 is, can anybody tell me answer of this question? Do we own any of the content that we create online? Do we own any of the posts that we create on Facebook? Do we own any of the things that we create on Twitter? Now, Elon Musk has brought Twitter. If he feels like, he can just delete all our accounts and we are done. All the connections we had built, all the messages, all the interaction we have built, everything is lost, because Web 2 is a very centralized platform. Like it's Facebook created its servers, its applications, services, and it gave off for people to use it for free, right? But the catch here is, the product is free, but the information we give them is what earns them money, right? It's everything in their hand. Even if it's our information, it's in their hand. Now, that has been one of the main challenges that Web 2 has been facing. Now, a lot of us would have seen, how many of you would have seen Social Dilemma? Right? And after watching that, I think, a lot of us would have had second thoughts. Like, are we really sure, like, this whole social media thing, should we even be on it? Right? So how, like, the whole dynamics of social media has been very like interesting to see, yet we see the harmful that it's causing. I think if anyone is speaking, can you be on? Good. So that's the interesting part, right? Like on Web 2, we don't own anything. It's all whoever is creating it, they are the people who own everything, all the data. Nothing is free. Now we step into Web 3. Web 3 is a complete concept for the next generation of internet. Like, yes, it's a wide vision where internet is owned and accessible by everyone, right? The idea is it is open source and it's permissionless and it's secure. And we'll get into how that comes in. Now, one of the key enablers of Web3 was blockchain, because blockchain just revolutionized how the whole web works, right? It's a very complex technology, and I'm not exactly a technical person who has a lot of idea, but I have little bit understanding of how blockchain works. It's basically a block of data is created by using multiple peer-to-peer systems, and it's embedded into a chain. That's where the name whole comes from, right? And that chain itself keeps on updating on a regular basis. So it's once it's put in a block, it's pretty hard to edit or remove things from there because its block is in the chain, in a global chain, right? And it's a one entity. It's not like, it's on one server or something. The chain itself keeps moving around through the internet, right? And it's said that if you want to hack one blockchain, you might require power equivalent to the electricity that is consumed by one city. And that's, I think, New York City, if I remember correctly. Right? So that's blockchain. Right now, Web3 as a next generation of internet comes with certain frameworks. So first of all, what we three, if we all remember how Google search works, right? We just put in what we want and Google shows us that, hey, this is your search result. But one of the main things here to understand is Google always doesn't show us what is the most accurate result. It shows us which is the most trending result, right? It's always the trend that is getting displayed. Because of that, if you know, like, doctors hate Google because people will just like Google anything and they will be like, oh, I'm dying. That's not it, right? Death is a trending term, but it's not what is accurate for the user, right? That's one of the examples of Web 2. Now, coming to Web 3, it is the idea is to have a semantic web. It's not just the web that will understand hashtags, it will not just the keywords, but it would understand the meaning of the words itself. Now, if you see on the right side, we have the diagram, how each version of web is different and how it's evolving, right? But it is still evolving. We will still be using Web 2.0. We won't directly jump to Web 3.0, right? It's a gradual evolution that will happen as we move from Web 1 to Web 2, now slowly from Web 2 to Web 3, right? So semantic web, things that will, your platforms that will understand the context itself and accordingly give you results, right? It's not just keywords or numbers. It's not like easily manipulable. You can manipulate, right? Now, second aspect of Web3 is the highly enabled AI and machine learning platforms, right? As we see, I think when internet started, it was all about devices. Like you needed a particular device, you needed a computer, you needed a wired connection to connect internet directly. As we moved on, we had the dial-up connection, the telephone networks came in. One of the key enablers for internet was mobile internet service, right? As we moved from computers to mobile wireless network, it enabled like the reach itself. And as we move ahead, AI, having efficient AIs and machine learning platform is going to be playing a crucial role. Why? Because now you see internet is not just about having screen devices. We have internet on all screenless devices. We have Alexas, we have Siri, like all these virtual assistants, right? They are like highly enabled AIs who learn and who grow as they interact with us. They are made in a way that they start processing as closely as possible to a human. And the whole idea of AI is to make it as the processing power to be as closely as human. It might take a lot of time, but someday we will have the Terminator future. So AI being one of the main features, then we have 3D graphics, right? With technology improving, with the broadband speeds we get all around the world, and we are moving from 4G, now we have like 5G in a lot of countries, as well as at least in India we have some cities which are enabled with 5G. So as the internet speed increases, we are able to process a lot of data. And now we are able to use a lot of 3D graphics in web itself. So all clear till here? Is there any questions, any doubts you have? You can feel free to put it in the chat or Q&A section. And coming up to the fourth feature, which is connectivity, as we discussed, right? As technology and cities and all the content we use is evolving, the connectivity itself is expanding and it's penetrating. Like, I think one of the examples is, most of the villages or rural population, there are at least like people who have telephone, like smartphones now. That's how much the technology has penetrated, right? And then we are coming to ubiquity. Ubiquity is making internet accessible for each and everyone, each and every device. It's not just laptop, computers, or phones. It's going to be any device that has ability to connect to internet that will be on board. These are the three main things that makes Web3. It is open. It is mainly built on open source softwares. Yes, it is, since it's still evolving, it is like in an earlier stage. So we still have to use the web through tech to get it there, right? Then we have, it is trustless, since it's a network. There's no middlemen that come in, right? Like, let's say you have to transfer money from your account to someone else's account, right? Let's say I have to transfer money to Sushi. Now, for that transfer, my money is in a bank account, right? Now that bank server is on or not, depending on that case, the money would get transferred. Maybe yes, maybe not. So bank here is the middleman, right? Now in Web 3.0, the whole idea is there's no middleman. It's a one-to-one connection. And one of the main examples, if you see MetaMask, right? MetaMask, as long as you have MetaMask wallet and any crypto wallet for that example, right? You can just transfer money that to anyone with the proper address. There's no third entity that is coming in between there. And also that it will be tracked, like everything is tracked. It's open, all your transaction can be public. And then comes permissionless. Now we had
Amit,
yes,
Amit, sorry to interrupt. On that context where we're talking about, everyone having a tracking ID and all that, Cyber is asking about security. So if you could cover that part as well, I think we can close that. Yeah.
I was coming to that itself. Now, security in the current basis, yes, it's not a fully 100% secure yet, but once the whole Web3 develops comes in, right, the idea would be that since we don't have any middlemen, there's no you can't invade a contract. So in Web 3.0, everything works on contract. Smart contract is like an agreement between, let's say, I'll take NFTs for example. I think how many of us are familiar with NFTs? I think we have seen NFT term going all around, right? Now, the NFT itself is a digital asset, right? It's non-fungible token. Now, what is this idea of non-fungible token? Is basically you can't exchange an NFT for another NFT because both are very different. Like, let's say if you have $100, I can exchange $100 for 10 $10 notes or $101 coins like that, or notes. But can I exchange a Mona Lisa for a value. There's no value on Mona Lisa, right? It's a piece of art. Its value is determined by the creator or by the audience who perceives it, for the matter of fact. Like the creator, Da Vinci would have put some value on it. And now if we see, it is in, it belongs to a museum. No one can buy it now. That's the case, right? So similarly, NFTs are like that. Now, as we were talking about smart contract, the idea here is if I'm selling an NFT to Sushi, the smart contracts make sure that the transaction is between me and Sushi only. The transaction is recorded. It is fully secure because unless and until they have a private key or ability to hack the blockchain, they can't uh, edit the smart contract at all. Once it's established, it's in place and no one else can view it. So there are certain use cases that we will come in, and this security thing is not just going to help in one aspect. In many of the fields, we already have Web3 established, especially finance and medical. So I'll come to your answer, Seval. I'll have that, in the next slide. So what are the different layers that enable Web3 to function as we are imagining, right? It is edge computing. One of the main factors is high computing power. That is all the hardware, softwares that are there in the world. Like it's above supercomputers, right? When you combine multiple systems together, they process it and enable. So that's at least my understanding of edge computing. There might be people, if you have like more detail, you can feel free to share it in the chats, and it will help everyone to understand it. Second is it is decentralized. As we were speaking about Web 2, Facebook, Google, everything runs on servers, right? If the server shut down, all the data is lost. Everything is gone. Like we would have seen all the trending, threads on Twitter where suddenly Facebook was out, WhatsApp was out, Instagram was out for a particular amount of time. That whole thing was because somewhere some server would have had issue, right? That whole link had broken. So it's all centralized. It's all in a centralized structure. Now with Web3 being decentralized, that it works between peer to peer. It's not at a central place stored anywhere. It will move between people. So it is in the hands of users, and that's what makes it decentralized. And then we have AI and ML technologies that will enable us to make this semantic web, highly efficient. And we have blockchain. Now, coming to use cases of Web3, right? One of the first use cases, decentralized finance. So this example we took up, right? A transaction between two people doesn't need any entity. Like right now, if I travel from India to, US or UK, anywhere, I need to convert my currency, Indian currency, to the dollar or pounds. But with Web3 and cryptocurrency, as long as I have that and it is enabled throughout the world, I can travel without any conversion. It stays the same globally, right? And it's not dependent on any of the institutes like Coinbase and Coinbase. We have Binance. All these places are enabling us to have purchased those bitcoins and cryptocurrencies, but they don't hold it as such. Okay? These are all marketplaces. Then the next is art and collectibles, NFTs, basically digital and non-digital assets. Now, for who all are present, how many of you think NFT is confusing? Right? If you can just put in yes or no in the chat, right? It is, right? Like sometimes there's so much hype around, but you just sometimes you will see like artists like Amrit Pal Singh, who has been around and has been publishing NFT works, and it's great work. And you try to see, okay, how do I get in? What is this whole NFT funda, right? Now, NFT, as we explained, simple. It's a non-fungible token. You can't exchange it for anything because its value is determined by the creator itself. This is in simpler terms. There are complexities that come in with the whole NFT thing, and that's a discussion for a later time, because if we get into that, it will be whole another session itself. But NFTs, like digital and non-digital, I'll give two examples. There are images and videos which are sold as NFTs, and people buy them as collections. So you have the creators and the collectors, right? Anyone who makes an NFT can make it on any platform. All they have to do is take the NFT, take it to a marketplace like OpenSea, Rarible, Super Rare, and on there, once you mint it. Now, the whole process of minting is converting that digital asset from just an asset to a blockchain, right? In the blockchain, once it's created, that block is created, you can't edit. And that's where the uniqueness of the NFT comes in. When people say it's one of a kind, because it's actually a unique block. There's no block on the whole blockchain that is same as this NFT. Now you have digital assets in that way. There are non-digital assets. So if people would have seen, Adidas recently got into NFTs. They had a whole launch of their NFT, and whoever purchased those NFT had access to exclusive uh, you know exclusive products from Adidas, as long as you have access to that NFT. If you don't have that NFT, you can't even access Adidas NFT platform. That's the whole thing. Like, it's creating whole exclusive matter. Now, next would be gaming. Now, with NFTs and cryptocurrencies getting enabled, gaming, we already had like platforms where people would game and collect these rare armors, weapons, all of these game assets, and they would sell it. Yes, that would be a earning source because the game had a marketplace. But with Web3, you can actually trade between different games. It will enable people to have like earn money as they play, and it will contribute the platform itself, because Web3 is driven by the amount of users that join in. So any platforms, the way they earn money is, how many people are contributing to it, how many people are onboarded to the platform, because it's a peer-to-peer network. The more the network goes, the more things get processed, and the more the value of the platform itself increases. So that's the whole idea of the gaming asset earning flow. Now coming to technology, as Saibal asked, right? How does security work in the whole Web3? Now let's take one of the technologies that has happened in Web3 is in medical field, right? Medical is a very crucial and important data, right? Someone gets hang of some patient's information, it is like a risky thing. And in current, even if you have like hundreds of firewalls and defense mechanism, yeah, there are hackers who are talented enough to hack it. They can hack it, they can steal the data and just threaten. We had like so many news like malware and ransomware, all this. So these are all the things that are difficult in the Web 2, because there are people who can crack it. But with Web3, as we mentioned, since it's always on blockchain, things are moving, it's not easy to hack in. Now, what happens is, this example I'll give you is, I am connecting to a hospital. I have my medical data associated with the hospital. And when I'm connecting with the hospital, I will establish a smart contract. And that smart contract is between me and my doctor directly. There's no third entity that will step in. Now, in that smart contract, we can decide, even if this information is shared with other, for research purpose, for any other purpose, what exactly is the set of information that will be shown, right? It's not like all sensitive information will be released. No, we can configure in that. So smart contracts is something which we actually, even I need to study a little bit deeper on this. So I have the high level understanding of this. Is how it works is, once you put it in place, it's forever going to be in place. And with Web3, all these contracts are also viewable, like it's on public domain. So people can track and audit any information that you put it, right? I hope I was able to answer your question, Seval. Now, let's move on to some of the, difficulties that are there. Like, we saw all the benefits that are there, it's decentralized, a peer-to-peer network, it's open, but it's still an evolving entity, right? It's not to its full potential. It hasn't reached there. So one of the main things that currently we see is accessibility point of view. It is not accessible by anyone and everyone. Like, to understand the concept of Web3, crypto and all, it takes a lot of, like, for a general person, it would be a lot of information. And then all the technologies that are currently developed are not focused on the accessibility part yet. They just want to first get the tech out, let it penetrate the market, and as it develops, we will be focusing on the accessibility part. Same goes to user experience, because on the UX part, most of the platforms haven't directly like made it easy yet. Like, they are trying their best, but there's so much of content out there, right? Like, as a designer, if I want to get into Web3, there are certain things that I need to understand, and there are a lot of technicalities that come with that. So establishing a good UX, it's one of the limitations. Like, it's not there yet where we want to be. Then comes education. As I said, to understand any of the web tech, there's a lot of reading, watching, and connecting with people to do. Like, there are communities who can teach you, but yeah, it's a lot of study. And then final is the centralized structure. Like, we are developing Web3, but it's not that we'll directly jump from Web2 to Web3. We are using platforms like GitHub, Discord to connect, these are all centralized Web2 platforms to connect with people and build Web3. So that slowly the transition is happening, but currently these are the limitations. Now, we have a question that says, how do you think brands would reach its target audience, or how do you think decentralization will affect advertising? And that's a very interesting thing that has been happening in the Web3 market. If you see, NFTs went from just being an asset to being a full-fledged community. Like, you need to have an audience. You need to connect to your audience to actually sell anything. Like, anything on NFT market, out of 100% of it, 75 to 80% is still unsold, because people are just directly putting it. They are not connecting to people. Like, I think if I remember this example correct, Jay-Z he had put up one of the albums on NFT and it didn't sell much because the artist understanding the hype, they came on board, but they didn't connect with the audience on Web3 platform. So the audience was like, we don't want to get in, and they didn't buy a lot of those music releases. So that was one of the fail parts. So here the idea is artist has to directly connect with audience. The advertising is, how do you make it personalized? Because Web3 is a peer-to-peer, it's a one-to-one connection. So if I'm buying an artist's artwork, it means that, okay, I'm owning a piece that is purely original and that artist created, right? It's not a copy, it's not a duplicate. That unique identity just gives that impact. So here it's all about making connection and being active in the communities, which is, I'll tell you from my understanding, it's not easy, but yeah, there are people who are out there, and in the community there are a lot of people who are willing to help. Like I have a friend who runs a NFT campaign. Like they just launched a series called Bay NFTs, and this is a group of people who work in altogether different streams. They just came together and they connected with a lot of multiple institutes, and they have launched this NFT series. And this, like, it's amazing to see how community could work, right? So I think before moving to metaverse, now this was a high level understanding from my research how Web3 functions, right? Any questions till now? Because before we move in to next, I'd like to show a few things. Should we move ahead? Okay, let me just share. Everyone can see this, right?
My name's Wade Watts. My dad picked that name because it sounded like a superhero's alter ego, like Peter Parker or Bruce Banner. But he died when I was a kid, my mom too. And I ended up here, sitting here in my tiny corner of nowhere. There's nowhere left to go. Nowhere. Except the oasis.
Amit, people can't see anything.
Is it not viewable? So they
No.
can hear the sound?
Yeah, we can hear the sound, but no video.
Just let me try. Now you can see, right?
Yeah, now it's done.
My name's Wade Watts. My dad picked that name because it sounded like a superhero's alter ego, like Peter Parker or Bruce Banner. But he died when I was a kid, my mom too. And I ended up here, sitting here in my tiny corner of nowhere. There's nowhere left to go. Nowhere. Except the oasis. A whole virtual universe. People come to the oasis for all the things they can do. But they stay because of all the things they can be.
Can you feel this?
Yeah. the only place that feels like I mean anything. The Oasis was the brainchild of James Halliday.
Hello. If you're watching this, I'm dead. I created a hidden object, an Easter egg. The first person to find the egg will inherit $500 billion and total control of the Oasis itself.
Who is this Parzival, and how the hell is he winning?
Find him. This isn't just a game. I'm talking about actual life and death stuff.
The Oasis, the world's most important economic resource. And it's nothing less than a war for control of the future.
Welcome to the rebellion, Wade.
Like many of you, I only came here to escape. But I found something much bigger than just myself. Are you willing to fight?
Help us save the Oasis.
Now, this is one of my favorite movies, I would tell you, but the thing I like about this movie is based on a sci-fi novel that was in 1990s. It was a very famous sci-fi novel, and it established the vision of what metaverse would be. Like, it's still not there, but yeah, what it would be, right? Like, it is this whole dimension. Like, in this movie, it's around like 30 years from now. People have finished exploring as much they could in the real life, and now metaverse is this new thing where it's just beyond reality. It's anything and everything. It's by the same name, Ready Player One. So the movie and the book have the same name, so you can check it out. Now, we saw Ready Player One. Now I'll show you another interesting trailer. So I think this is also a very cult film for people who are film enthusiastic.
I promised you that if I ever got any information about your dad, I'd tell you first, right? I was paged last night. Came from your dad's office at the arcade. So? The number's been disconnected for 20 years. 2 nights before he disappeared, he came to my house. He said he was about to change everything. Science, medicine, religion. He wouldn't have left that, Sam. He wouldn't have left you.
Alan, you're acting like I'm gonna find him sitting there working. Just, hey kiddo, lost track of time.
Wouldn't that be something?
Long time. You have no idea.
Now, both, being amazing sci-fi films, can anyone tell me what was a major difference between both of these movies? What is it that you would have observed? Right. So exactly, right? In Ready Player One, the people use a VR object to enter the virtual world. Like they are still in the physical world and they enter the virtual world and interact there via a medium. But in Tron, the whole person was transported to digital world. And every entity in Tron that the person interacts with is basically like, an AI. That was the whole idea. Like they were so highly developed AIs that they can think and process much faster than humans. And that's where, if you see the movie, you'll get an idea that how the change in digital aspects can impact the real reality too. Yes, it is Tron is meta too, but it is I think is the next level of meta where we can actually physically enter the digital world and people might start seeing it. I think how many of people here are anime and manga fans? I think I am one. I read them every day. Now, in mangas and in comics, we have seen this, right? These aspects where people are in virtual gaming pods and they are living second life altogether in the games, right? So this is whole what just a glimpse of what metaverse is, but metaverse is way beyond than just being a video game or just a small piece of experience. So let's jump into metaverse. Now, whole metaverse is like a single simulation that works globally, not just globally, any place that has internet connectivity access. It's a simulation where anyone can join through anything. You can join through a computer, you can join through an IoT device. It's a full landscape, just like Earth is. That's the vision of metaverse, and everything has a continuity. Like how you change in reality, like we have assets, like we have monuments that decay over time, right? The idea in metaverse to have that kind of effect. That is what metaverse is. And it's, yeah, Upload is one of the brilliant. Like I love the first season. Second season I still have to watch it, but that's a good content. So coming back to metaverse, right? It's a single plane of entity where basically I'll show the next slide. So it is a combination of all the technologies that are already there. And it's a single huge landscape where we all be entering, hopefully in the future soon, right? It is a combination of Web3, blockchain, gaming, and mixed reality, which includes VR, AR, right? Now, this metaverse word itself was coined in another sci-fi book in 1982. But the main thing is it's not there yet. Like things are developing. We have platforms which enable us to join virtual meetings and have 3D avatars and all. They are contributing to the metaverse that the whole concept is all about. It's like right now they are all in a centralized place. Like Facebook Meta, which they started the virtual meetings, if you would have seen. It's an interesting concept, but there are limitations. One, I need to be a Facebook user. Two, I need to have at least one person who has a Oculus, right? And Oculus VR headset, some VR headset to access the platform, right? So these are certain limitations. Now, the whole idea is in metaverse, you would be living, interacting as you do in real life, but that whole experience will be much more enhanced. Like people love VR because it just takes them from a room to, let's say, a complete new roller coaster ride. I think we have seen a lot of Instagram reels where the person is in VR and they just jump and they fall on the TV, right? It's funny, but imagine that person is so engrossed in that experience. Now, metaverse is what combines all of this. So you can buy, create, sell, and communicate everything on metaverse. That's the ideal metaverse. Now, one of the main things people confuse is metaverse is like a video game. No, it's not a video game. If you take an example of video games, like even multiplayer video games, I think we have people who would have played Dota, PUBG, right? All of these video games, if you consider one thing, they all run on server. There's no simultaneous simulation, right? Unless and until you and me are on the same server, I don't think so we might be able to play directly. Or there are certain cases that come into picture. And there's a limitation of how many simulations can be played at the same time, right? If let's say 1 lakh people join in, there might be 10,000 simulations which are running parallelly, where each simulation has 10 people playing together. And in video games, everything gets reset after a particular time. But in metaverse, things would be different. They will be like how it's in reality. Once you change something, once you do a transaction, or once you get an asset, all this will be how we are right now living in reality. Now we have what would be the core enablers of metaverse, right? This graph here, this chart here shows what will enable. One, having excellent hardware. Two, having like highly computing power. And three, we need like good networks that work together and have virtual platforms, right? And tools that enable data exchange between different platforms. Like there's a standardized way that things need to be done, right? Then payment service and content and content services and assets. So all these things combined will make metaverse more efficient and take it to the vision that it actually is, which is still in a very, like we are in a phase where it's still this like taking off. It's not even taken off. Okay. Now, Web3 and Metaverse are parallel technologies. They are not the same. They are parallel. They are technologies that are emerging together right now, but they can perfectly help each other. That's the idea. Wherever Web3 is decentralized, and it's like peer-to-peer connection. It uses highly edge computing. That's where metaverse can utilize those technologies and give us real life simulations. And that's the idea. So these technologies are developing parallelly but support each other, and they will be highly useful as we go ahead. Now, things to consider about Web3 and Metaverse as a designer, right? Like these are some of the pointers that at least I've come across is we have to embrace the chaos that is there. Like there's so much content out there. We don't know where to start or where to, get exact information. There are like great platforms who have documented things, but there's a lot to take in. It's not easy to understand all that information, right? So for a particular time, yes, we will be in chaos because everyone has their own understanding. Everyone has their own things to preach about. So that's first. Now, second would be reading a lot of source materials. We'll have to go through different articles, different websites, that watch videos, follow channels, follow people who promote it, and then go ahead and process it and come up with our own hypothesis. And these are like some challenges, but next is, as we are just stepping into it, we are able to set up standards. Like, let's say we are creating a metaverse platform, we are able to define what goes in and what doesn't, and what needs to be taken care of, or how does it make sure that it's useful for everyone. Well, next is, it's fun and exciting. It's really fun actually, like, to work with a technology that is just emerging, because there's so much you can do. There is so much potential. There are so many ideas that you can come up with. Execution, yes, execution is the next part, but it is fun. At least I have fun when I do this. Then we have, like, yes, if you have a technical knowledge or background, it will help more to understand easily what people are talking about here and there. And we have to be both the user and the designer, because that's the technology we'll be using, or like the platform will be using. Similar to how uh, Steve Jobs had said when they designed an iPhone, he had said that design a phone that you would use as a user every day, right? That's what his was, that you have to be like, as a designers, we empathize with the users and we create experience, right? And that's exactly what even in Web3 and Metaverse we'll have to do, and we'll have to go one step beyond, because in Web3, we would have to understand the level of personalization we can take in with all the efficient AIs and ML platforms coming in. How do we use that data? How do we make it so that users just enjoy what they're using? Now, I think Sumit has an interesting question that says, do you foresee a possibility that metaverse can completely disconnect us from reality? Isn't that scary? It's becoming everybody's go-to because of the ideal world as a new addiction. It is scary, right? Like, as I said, like, I've been reading some of the mangas and all, and they have this concept where once the user logs in, they have these gaming pods which will enable to have, like, even nutrient and everything is managed from there, right? So once you go into the pod, yes, you can be asleep, you can be in the virtual world, but that's way ahead in the future. But think about it, on a positive side, it's a land of new opportunities. It's a land where you can create anything and everything. That's what the idea of metaverse is. You can consider, right, like, every one of us wants to escape from reality, right? Because there are people who love their job, people who don't like it, there's some fights going on, there are weather changes, all these are like, we don't want to deal with it. And no one wants to deal with, like, okay, suddenly today is very hot and tomorrow it's snowing, right? But once we go to metaverse, we will have more challenges. It's not like, it, yes, it's escape from reality, but that reality itself will have its own cons. So balancing it would be a very difficult thing, but we'll see how it develops, right? Now, yeah, Matrix. I think Matrix was, like, it still is one of the leading movies that established this whole concept of virtual and real world, how they interfere with each other. And we never know, we might have a Matrix that happens. Now, I have, like, I hope I have answered. If there are any questions, please feel free to put it in the chat and I would love to answer them, right? And based on my research, there are certain platforms that you can actually go in and read up about. These are links that I've shared, and Sushri would share it with tomorrow's emails as well, and I will share it on my LinkedIn as well, so you can have access to the deck. Oh, Black Mirror Bandersnatch. That's a really great episode, and I think there's a Black Mirror season 3. There's an episode where they inject a chip in one person, and he starts to experience the virtual and the real world together, and how scary it gets. And so that's some of the thing. Game testing episode, exactly. Like, it is mind-boggling. The Free Guy, yeah, Free Guy is amazing. It was fun to watch, right? Like a virtual character, that AI coming in, like getting a sense of understanding that, okay, it's more than the algorithms that has been written. And that's how the AI is going to be. Now, one of the things you need to understand is, yes, the whole thing is happening in a spatial, in a 3D space, as a designer, as a UI UX experience designer, right? But we are all designing that experience. How do people actually get into that space when they are navigating? How do they navigate properly? How do we make sure that, anything they are interacting with provides them good experience? Today we are designing for screens. Tomorrow we are not designing for screens. We are designing in air. Like, how does a display look in air? Which is, if you see all the AR glasses and all, things are hanging in air. Right? As a UX, as a designer itself, we have to consider this factor that doesn't matter what medium we are in, or doesn't matter what technology, how do we make sure a user has a good experience overall? And yes, with Metaverse and Web3, the understanding, as I said earlier, the technical understanding is crucial. Along with that, understanding of 3D space and will help you more. And because these platforms are complex, we can't help it. So we have to get on board and study as it's evolving, as I said, right? Oh, graphic designers, there's so much. It's all one of the key things is visual, right? So how do you create beautiful graphics all around? I think let me see, I was looking at a platform recently, just to check out. Just pull it up. There was this platform called yeah. So there's this platform called senseofspace.io. I'll share my screen. And this is something that I came across yesterday. I was browsing through LinkedIn sometime. And one of the interesting factor it shows is that it doesn't render pixels, right? Right now, you take any platform that is rendering pixel-based images or videos, doesn't matter what, right? But this itself directly renders polygon, the 3D object itself. So there are some interesting use cases that they have put up, and it apparently is highly effective. Now, from a UX perspective or a design perspective, we are contributing to building such platforms. Like, people would be using this technology, but before people, we will be designing for businesses that will come up with these ideas. Right? How does this look in 3D space or virtual space? That is going to play a key role. So you can have a look of this, and if you want to study more on NFTs, and there are resources I've shared, and if anyone is interested in joining a good community, I think so the system is a pretty good community. Like I've been part of system, some of the sessions that I've taken in discussion with Jose and the whole team. If you see, they are doing a pretty good job in creating Web3 platforms, especially Web3 for now. Like for music.com, they have transitioned the complete project from Web2 to Web3. They have bridged the gap, and it's a great place to learn, and the people have been great. So these are some of the things. I'll share it in my deck as well. And I think we are up on time. So do you have any questions? Anything? I hope I was able to answer your graphic design question, because we are also working on the same thing. So we are trying to, see where all we can add value, because everything that is out there is an opportunity right now. So it's never too late to actually onboard it, but the sooner we get, the better it is to understand and establish like standards, as I said, right? So tomorrow we can say, hey, 10 years back, this standard that you're using right now was established by my team. I'm glad that, it was helpful. So I think we are all good to go now. So thank you so much, everyone. It was great. Thank you so much for attending. And I'll see you in the next session.